Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the October Lunch and Learn put on by the Warren County Historical Society and its Harmon Museum. My name is John Zimkus. I am the Education Director and Historian here, and I'm so happy to see a great crowd like we have going here today. This is the largest group we've had here for a Lunch and Learn in well over a year and a half. This is 1.5 times bigger than anything we've had in the last 6 months when we started up these lectures. And so I'm so glad to see you here. We've got a lot of things going on. I'm going to talk about first the new Lunch and Learns coming up. First, I have a somewhat sad announcement to make that our November scheduled Suffragist and the Mother Goose Women of Persistence, that lecture has been canceled. The Miami Valley Art Quilt Network has decided not to come. The good news is, however, our good friend Joyce Loving Browning will come back. She's the one who, you may recall her as Annie Oakley, and may recall her. She will do a true story about Mary Draper Ingalls. Mary Draper Ingalls in 1755 was a pioneer woman in Western Virginia when she, her 2 sons, and several neighbors were captured by the Shawnee and brought to their village, their Chillicothe, as it was called back in those days. And her escape, her 800-mile ordeal escape, I've seen her do it. She did it for our Frontier Fair, and it'll be a fascinating talk, and I think you'll enjoy that this November 17th. On December 15th, we have our good friend Fred Compton, who's always here at least once a year, usually around Christmas time, and he'll talk about the 12 months of Christmas. As you may know, Fred was employed by the Golden Lamb for over 30 years. He started out as a summer job going to school, and he was a busboy, and after he graduated from Miami University, he stayed there for another 25 plus years. Rising to the rank of assistant manager. But he'll talk about the year-long process of preparing for Christmas that used to go on at the Golden Lamb. How truth in advertising almost once destroyed the Golden Lamb's Christmas. How the great light bulb shortage of the 1990s also put a damper on it. And how it's not a good idea to have edible decorations. And other such things. So Fred will be here on Wednesday, December 15th. I hope you can come join us for that one. On January 19th, we're going to have Postcard Mysteries by Carol Donison. Carol is a local author who has been a great friend to the Historical Society here. And she has written a series of books which are called Postcard Mysteries. Some of them do have Warren County and Lebanon connections. This is Hear No Evil, and this is See No Evil. Now, we sell these in the bookstore, but if you look at this is actually a postcard from the Shaker Inn Motel around the corner. So these stories do take place in Lebanon. One I'm particularly excited about is The Westerner. The Westerner is it's a mystery, but the characters are real. Tom Corwin, the great governor of Ohio, his uncle was one of the founders of Lebanon. His granddaughter married James Madison Burns, and it was the biggest wedding in all of Lebanon in 1883. And he was the recipient of the Medal of Honor for his actions during the Civil War. That part is true. The mystery is what she developed, and so intertwined in the story is their love story. And at the back are several footnotes and appendices about facts that actually happened. And I had the privilege of helping research some of those facts. So this will be in January, so hopefully you can come join us for that one. Come February, I will be the speaker I will be talking about what it was called once the African Union School and its teacher, S.R. Bailey. I am currently researching this in hopes of having a book published on it. Beginning in the 1850s and going on into about another 40 years or so, there were separate schools in Lebanon for black and white students. And S.R. Bailey was a teacher there, and he was a former slave from Alabama. And it's a fascinating story, what he tells and what you have to fill in the blanks. He put his biography in the History of Warren County, published in 1882, and he talks about, I was born in Alabama, and I went to Ohio in 1863. He doesn't tell you that the Civil War was going on, and he's a slave, going from a slave state to a free state in the middle of the war. I went to Wilberforce University, and I was there for 7 years. The reason he was there for 7 years is most likely he didn't know how to read. It was illegal in Alabama to teach a slave how to read. So all these fill in the blank kind of things, and the story of the school is one I find fascinating, and hopefully you will too. Come March 16th, our good friend Mary Allen will do a talk on Harmon, Blennerhassett, and Blennerhassett Island. I don't know if any of you read David McCullough's book, The Pioneers, and he mentions that Blennerhassett Island is in the middle of the Ohio River, and it was an Irishman, Blennerhassett, and he was very wealthy, and he got involved with Aaron Burr. Most people know who Aaron Burr is now, of course, because of Hamilton. But Aaron Burr was attempting to make his own country out of the Louisiana Purchase. And Harmon Blennerhassett became part of that involvement. What happened? Why did it not take place? Why did Harmon Blennerhassett go broke? Fascinating story, and Mary will tell us many, many more interesting facts about that. Currently upstairs, now remember, while you are with us, you do have free access to the museum. Gary Singinger, his life, art, and legacy. A beloved art teacher here in Lebanon. He unfortunately died some years ago with a motorcycle accident, but we have a fantastic display of his work. His dear wife, Connie, lent us all these pieces, and they are beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And they'll be up until December 3rd, so please take advantage. Go on the elevator at the Harmon Museum, press 1, and it opens up right to the gallery. If you don't see anything else, just take a look at his fantastic work there. All Hallows Eve will be taking place on Saturday, the 30th of October, and it'll be right here at the Harmon Museum from 6:30 to 9. It is $8 for adults, $4 for children, and we will have a magician. We will have perhaps the ghost of Orville and Wilbur Wright, but they will be here. There'll be some trick-or-treating, there'll be ghost stories. The historian of the Golden Lamb, who happens to be me, will be there telling ghost stories about the Golden Lamb. So it's some fascinating things going on for 2.5 hours on Saturday the 30th. We'd love to have you come join us. Entertainment for children and adults, so I think everyone would like that. We are planning, of course, to have Christmas at Glencoe. That's still in the planning stage, but it'll be on Friday and Saturday from 12 until 4, beginning on December 3rd and going until January 7th and 8th. And it's always beautiful. Perhaps a little bit more traditional Christmas this year, but some great things are coming. And starting December 10th, when the Gary Singinger display is no longer on, we're going to have Tim Ryan, a watercolorist from Yellow Springs, and he will be having his work on display. And he has quite the reputation, and I think you'll enjoy that. So a lot of exciting things are happening here at the Harmon Museum, and hopefully you can be part of that and join us. Enjoy your meal, and you are in for a treat. We had Linda, our speaker, Back in the early days of COVID, we tried our hand at putting virtual lunch and learns, and we did well, it was great. I thoroughly enjoyed it. We didn't know what we were doing as far as recording it goes, but it was a great experience, and I loved it, and I think you will love it too. Halloween is one of the most popular holidays in America. It's in the top, 3 at least, I would think. Everyone likes Halloween. I've got the closest thing to my Halloween tie here. It's actually the Wizard of Oz, but has the Wicked Witch of the West right over here. So that fits in with Halloween. Linda Martin has been collecting Halloween artifacts since the 1980s. And she has over 1,000 in her collection. Some of them are, in fact, 100 years old, but this is but a mere fraction of what she has. And I found out she also collects Christmas ornaments. So we may have her next year for Christmas. But this is something I think you'll enjoy. For some of us, it'll shed light onto things from the past. For others, it might even spark a few memories here or there. Ladies and gentlemen, Linda Martin.
Good morning. How is everybody today? Well fed? Welcome to Halloween in America. My name obviously is Linda Martin. I love Halloween, as you can see. I grew up in Miamisburg. I had 2 brothers and a sister. We were in the baby boomer time where there were lots and lots of kids. There was probably 50 kids in our neighborhood alone, just in a simple radius of our house. We had no time frame when we would trick or treat. Obviously in the 60s for myself, we didn't have a 6 to 8 time. We would be at the front door waiting. The minute we saw another kid, we went. So that helped with, and I think we would go for hours at a time, or till we were frozen. We had a really nice neighbor up the street, Maggie Hicks. She would make us come in her house. We would have to stand there and look at her. She would ooh and ah. She would give us a dime and a regular size candy bar. So we thought that was so great of her. We loved her so, but it also slowed us down. We thought once we go in her house, it's gonna slow us down because all these other children and kids were going past us. But many memories. Our mother would never buy a box costume like I have here today. We would have to make our own costumes. We were bums, we were hobos, we were athletes, we were put together old women with a duster, whatever. She was not gonna buy it. We had to find it in the house. That was usually the night before. So therefore we were very prepared ahead of time for that. I used to go with my sister when I was younger. As I got older, we went on our own. We had no parents that came with us. They didn't know where we went, which was the best time for kids, wasn't it? Yes, candy and away from your parents. Great gift. Next to Christmas, I believe Halloween is one of the biggest holidays for everybody. We would have candy in our closet at home until Christmas. It was our bag. It would be the stuff we would not want. It was probably gum, suckers, licorice, things like that. But we still had candy until our mother made us throw it away. After that, as we got older, we could go buy our own candy. But like John said, I started collecting in the late 1980s. It was small. Actually, I still have the 2 pieces that I bought at the time when I began. I thought they were wonderful. The Dayton Mall had a little antique show, and we were walking through it, and I saw them, and I thought, oh, I really like those. And this began all my hunt, and now I'm at this. So these were very special to me, which I guess I kind of didn't bring my best stuff, but I brought the most interesting stuff today. We walk antique shows, we walk flea markets, my husband buys on eBay. Many 5 o'clock in the morning adventures out came to this too. That's how we could find things. Unfortunately today, a lot of people don't have it. We can't find it. It's too expensive. So if anybody has any in their grandma's attic, if you could let me know that, that would be great. I'm going to pass around a picture of what Halloween looked like in the 1920s. It's kind of hard to see, so I'll pass it around if you guys can just pass it around and let everybody look at it. It gives you a whole different feel of what Halloween was at that time. Kind of fun. So a little history of Halloween. It came to America from Germany in 1900s, turn of the century. Halloween was always on October 31st. It was first known as All Hallows Eve, which I see that on your thing coming up on Saturday. The 1920s was adult parties. It was not for children. Adults got together, they dressed up, they had games. They would have mostly fortunes. Some of them were matchmaking for women. Why you would let Halloween do that for you, but I guess some did. A lot of fortune telling. The images are not gory. They're scary, as you can see. They were scary. They were scary for kids. Unfortunately, what did you do after you had a party? You threw it away. Everything got thrown away. So the things that remain today, a little harder to find. We do find it on occasion, but most of the things were just pitched, except for bags. We do see a glutton of bags. So the demand far exceeds what we can find. So anyway, that was the 20s. That will tell you a little bit about how the 20s start. Then we came into the 1930s. You know what happened in the 30s? The Depression. We had a lot of people did not have things. Those that did, Hollywood influenced a lot of the Halloween parties at that time because they were the ones that everybody could see were dressing up and having a good time. Formal invitations, that was a must. If you were having a party, you must have invitations. I do find invitations from time to time. A lot of them are not dated. They would not date them. They'd say October 31st, but you don't know the date, which I wish they would have, because that would help us date it. American companies got together. Beistel, they were from Pennsylvania. Denison, which is a big company for Halloween, they were from Massachusetts. And of course, Gibson is our own here in Cincinnati. Those three companies were the biggest companies that produced Halloween items. But getting them to us became a love of Woolworth, Kresge, Grant's, whatever little small town you had a store that you could go to, they were sent out to those particular places because those got it to the masses. And it was initially not always a candy holiday at that time either. They would give, well, I was trying to think what candy they would give at that time. Not much, because it was still, we're going into a time frame where people did not have money in the 30s. Also, in order to keep children kind of not bored or cause of vandalism, therefore they would give them treats. That became trick or treat. That's where it became, as after at that time at the end of the 30s, was trick or treat. So let's take a look a little bit about what articles we have. Lanterns, these all would have been lanterns. Thanks to Mr. Zimkus, he brought me a flashlight so you could see how these lanterns glow. All these, yeah, so that makes a huge difference. A lot of these would have had candles in them. They put candles in them and took them around. What kept them from burning down, I have no idea. That had to be. A lot of times there's remnants of candles in some of them. It's good if they all have the original inserts, which mine do. These are my new love. I can't find enough of these this is a new one, the kitty one. I think it's so great. Yes, Jeannie?
Linda, what are they made of?
They're made of like egg cartons. The same thing that a cardboard egg carton would have been made of. So that they're lightweight, they had always had wire handles. Yeah, they would burn. You can see how they would just burn up in a minute. And to give a lighted flame to a child that went out, I would not think would be good either. Lanterns that have scary images. Lanterns. I don't know if this. Let's see if this one glows. It shows a little better, doesn't it? Yes.
Can you hold that up, please?
Yes. Can you see it from back there? I know. It's a wonder that those didn't get burned up as well. Condition is big. Everybody wants the perfect condition. I started out small, buying small things. As I got better at it, I'd trade them in so I can get a little better items. The witch would have been a table decoration. She would have sat on your table for your party. And here are some represents some of the games. Fortune telling, dumb skull. They usually had you do silly little things. This one as well had a fortune. So I guess they believed you needed a fortune to be told and scared. I have a minor story about this lantern. She's very cute. My father brought a box of Halloween items home one time after he was helping his sister clean out her house. And he opened this box. He said, "Isn't this that stuff you collect?" And I'm like, "Yes, that's the stuff I collect." It's not in the best condition, but I still love her just the same. They make annoying sounds for that. So these were all items that would have been out in the 20s and 30s. Hats. At the parties, you had to wear a hat. This is one of my favorite hats. It has a really scary guy on the back, too. I recently just got this. My husband got it for me for Christmas. It's dated 1921. So as we speak, it's 100 years old. How something of this condition stayed for...
What is that?
It's a horn. Mm-hmm. Let's see. It does. So 1921 on that. So that's one of the oldest things that I probably own. So as we see all the things you would have hung on your wall for your party, most of them are heavily embossed. That kind of is a German from Germany. They had that feature. The scary cats, the moons, all of these are embossed as well. They give a depth of what you can see, coloring. A little bat, Feistel. Lots of images, lots and lots of images. So now we're moving on to the 1940s. It was the end of the Art Deco period in the 40s that was so beautiful in the 30s, but everyone knows that it was the start of the war years in the 40s. So that was going to be a very hard time for our country, for the companies that produce stuff. 1942, I wrote, some communities canceled Halloween because of the war effort. They felt that it wasn't a time to entertain or be happy or joyous. But as time went on, they realized that this was not going to go with children, that they needed to be, entertained, and so they weren't always depressed of what home life could have been at that time. There was no medals. There was no metal at that time, so nothing was made of metal. I read this week that a movie theater in Kansas advertised a free bag of popcorn for every pound of scrap metal they would bring to the movies that day. That they would get free popcorn and think that was great. I did not live through that time frame, but it's obviously still resonates with so many things in our country at that time. There was sugar rationing. Nobody had any sugar. How can you make Halloween candy if you have no sugar? So at that time, they would give out coins or fruits, or they would have nuts. Sometimes they would just write little messages on paper and put them in kids' bags, so that would kind of keep them entertained. Costumes at that time were Elvis. We were emulating Elvis, Mickey and Minnie Mouse. Also, there was more homemade costumes at that time, because the parents would take their scraps, obviously, and make clothing. Lots of clowns, lots of witches were made. In some of the pictures that I see, you can see that in it. Then there was wooden noisemakers because they could get no metal. I don't really have any wooden ones here today, but so that was what we were through the war. But then after we came out of the war, we had all these children, all these baby boomer children. Rock and roll started. People started buying more houses, so there were places to go and live in Platts and communities. Ben Cooper and Collegeville were the two major companies that produced Halloween boxed costumes. So they were the two that were the biggest that made. There were others that came along later, but those were the two, and they're still in business today. So they still make costumes. So the store-bought then suddenly became TV related. The costumes were TV related. We looked at Flipper, of course. Flipper, we love Flipper. Very odd costume. We love that at our house. My husband, that's his number one pick. Davy Crockett, we had Superman, we had lots of cowboys, lots of Indians because of all the TV shows that were related to this. We had many, many, many candy bags, as you can see, that said trick or treat. So that was during a lot of that, but during the 50s and 60s, sugar rationing was over then, started into the 50s. Sugar rationing was over, we started having lots of sugar. Mars, Curtis, and Brock's, as we all know today, still make candy. I have boxes that represent that. So let's take a look at some of that stuff. If you'll notice how the coloring is of this time frame moves to the coloring of the 40s, 50s, and 60s. Things were a little more meaner. The niches started to become nice. They started looking nice. They're nicer. So we were a little bit more concerned about that. Costumes, of course. This is one of my favorite costumes, this little kitty. Not in the best of condition, but they were made of, you probably all can remember, they're made of this real cheap rayon that if you could get your kids out the door wearing this without it being ripped was always a good thing. And then others that I have here, Collegeville, lots of advertising, candy bars, boxes. There was a lady that asked me yesterday about this box. She said, did they actually have full-size candy bars in there? I'm like, I'm assuming they did from the size of that. A lot of times the boxes would have a mask on the back, so if you could have a mask. So they were trying to be twofold there. Not always. Mars were a little bit better than that. So here's a really nice candy box. They bought a big box. They were going to give out 1 cent, it says. A kitty coloring book. I never knew there'd be such a thing as kitty coloring books at Halloween. Does anybody remember those? I remember Christmas ones. We all had Christmas or regular ones, but not kitty or Halloween related. This one is like a flock, so it's really fun. Hats for your Halloween party were a little different than the hats of this. These are little honeycomb hats. So there were many of those, hard to find, that aren't killed because they were thrown away. And of course, you probably all remember noisemakers. We never had noisemakers at our house, probably because with 4 children, who needed noisemakers? Right, so all of them have a certain theme to them. I like this one the most. I have had this one for a long time. It's a bell. It's probably got stuffing in it. But it's a bell, which has lots of great imagery on it. That's one thing the medals would kind of continue on to do. I probably have 60 medals, clangers, noisemakers. These are some of my favorite. They all make a certain sound. This one does not. That's the one I picked up. This one does. This one will. All of them make some kind of noise. I don't remember having those at our house. I don't remember our neighborhood having those. Did anybody can remember if they had those? You did? Yeah, you did? Your mom let you take them outside and go for it, huh?
Run down the street.
Yeah, we're coming. All those baby boomers, we're coming. We're coming to, yeah. Right. Do you remember those? My husband would say, ask him this. Do you remember the black and orange candy that was they probably made one batch in 1950, and they gave them out forever. They were like a hard nougat. Yeah, well, and they were really hard. I don't know if anybody remembers this. They were really cheap. And I think they made one batch in 1950, and they've been giving them out since, because they're just as hard. You can still buy them. I saw them. You can still buy them and eat them, I guess, if you feel the need to, but or the choice. Have your dentist on the phone, right after you ate those. But and these are the same thing. I don't know if I did my light. Let's see if we can get these to light up. The lanterns of the 50s changed. They became cardboard. This one glows a little bit. She glows. Can you see that back there? Everybody can see this glows as well. I have this nice mean witch. I don't know how they would have put any type of candle in these as well. It's. Wouldn't you have thought? I would have thought there would have been. The medals, I love the medals. This one has a horn on the end. So I guess not only, you can't put candy in that. So the horn.
Do they blow on my nose?
Apparently. The masks. This would just been a mask if you had a homemade costume yourself. You could just buy masks. Do you? At least, well, the plastic ones so much. Remember, you couldn't breathe in them. They got real sweaty, and you put them up on your head. Yeah. The first 5 minutes you took those off, didn't you? Yeah, I know. That's how it was. Yeah, and as time goes on, the costumes are all made of plastic, so that has to be really miserable too. Remember, you didn't want to wear your coat? Does anybody think, oh, please, Mom, don't let us wear it. We don't want to wear our coat. Sometimes you had to. Candles, we had candles. That would have been on your party table. Plastics became big. This was one of the first things I owned as well. I thought, oh, this is so great. I love this. Would have been a candy container. You would have got this at Woolworths. It would have had candy in it, maybe a little horn. So these were candy containers, plastic. As well as the little witch lady here. She's heavily sought after. A little lantern, which I could almost see why. It's glass made. Would put batteries in it. This you could almost see as something that you could take out that wouldn't get burned down your house or anybody else's house. But these were battery operated glass. They're very interesting, I think. I can get batteries and get those to work. Another table decoration, anything to make your table look festive. This would have been another candy container. You could have picked that up at These are Woolworths, would have had candy in it. I don't know anybody that got those, but we didn't get them. Did anybody else get them? I probably have a lot of more smaller things at home I don't have here today. I tried to bring a representation of everything that I thought would be interesting. So let's see anything else. So the candies of the 50s, candy corn, black licorice, that'd be bad. Pixie sticks and Necco wafers. Who can remember Necco wafers? Yeah, that was big in the 50s. Actually, you can still buy Necco wafers. We used to always dig through and get the chocolate ones. It was in that pack, a little chocolate. And the candies of the 60s was sweet tarts, Swedish fish, which you can still buy. Of course, M&Ms. Who could live without those? And Baby Ruth. So those were kind of the most popular candies at that time. I asked my sister last night, I said, what was Dad's favorite candy bar? Was it Butterfingers or was it Clark bars? We really couldn't come up, it's one of those. And whatever they were, those had to be given to him. All those had to go to him at that time. It's the only thing he asked. He didn't really do a lot with Halloween. But he did ask, okay, all the Butterfingers come my way, yeah. So there was always everybody's favorites at that time, that you could get. So we couldn't come up with a final answer on that, could we? I know. Probably because we never ate them because he got them, and that's why we can't remember exactly. So just a couple of little trivia questions or trivia things I have here. That in 2019, $2.6 billion was spent on Halloween candy. This was in 2019, so yeah, huge. That's a lot of sugar. It said Americans spent $490 million on costumes for their pets. Yeah. The heck with those kids. Like, we got the dog a costume this year, you know? They probably didn't have to wear homemade, did they? So yeah. And does anybody know what the top seller candy bar is in the United States? Anybody? Reese Cups. That's the #1 seller in the United States. And here you have one. Of course, my favorite, Hershey chocolate in any form, was #10. Was that? How could it be #10? I wanted to be. So that was on mine. Was to know that. And then no Halloween would be complete without candy corn. Everybody sees they get candy corn today? Yes. It was invented in 1880s by George Reniger of the Wonderly Company of Philadelphia. Who knew that this many years later we're still eating it today? Does everybody buy candy corn? Everybody eats candy corn? I think it's a love-hate, isn't it? Like, I can't eat that, or I can eat that. Yeah, love those. Those fat pumpkins. Oof, I know.
I remember as a kid that in my house, we did not give out candy bars. My mom would go through the painstaking thing of getting a Halloween little napkin, putting some candy corn, putting some small things, putting a little ribbon around it. So everybody got a little bag of something.
Those are very popular.
Yeah.
Those little plastic, or those, they were like a waxy paper.
Yeah.
Popcorn balls. Yeah. We had a neighbor that lived up the street that gave everybody apples because they owned an orchard. I thought, that's the worst thing. Remember the butchers up the street? I was like, who gives that clunking thing in your bag and then you're dragging an apple around? That's probably... Yeah, or a pencil, yeah. Which actually was probably better than the apple. We did not like apples for that reason. So.
One last question over here.
And there was always that house where the dentist lived. And you get a toothbrush.
Oh.
Or a little toothbrush.
Really?
His windows don't show.
Probably advertise his name on it because you're going to need me this week. Is that it? Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much, Linda.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
If you have more questions for
Yep,
Linda
whatever.
and you want to
We'll be
take a
hanging
closer
around.
look at her collection, please do so. Remember, you have the free access to the museum, and the Gary Seminger gallery is open up with a great deal of his work. Hope to see you next month with Mary Draper Ingalls, and her exploits of being captured by the Shawnees in 1755.
Wow.
Take care.